here at Techweek 2015. I'm sitting down with Naser Ali from Interoute. We're going to talk a little bit about the cloud and some of the services that Interoute offers, as well as kind of the difference between public and private in regards to security and compliancy, speed, SLAs, all that good stuff. I like to start off some of these cloud talks with kind of a, in my opinion, a goofy question. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about the cloud?
That's a great question. What is one of the biggest misconceptions about the cloud? I think you've had the concept of the cloud being this place of compute, storage, network, and you've had this very smart compute bit sitting on top of the internet infrastructure for a long time. But underneath it, you've had a dumb network, and I think one of the misconceptions is that is the model that will always be continuing. I think it's ripe for some more evolution now. I think what we're moving on to now is the idea of having a smart network, and on top of that, building smart compute resources, and having this what we can use as an MPLS type network, which allows you to create a single tenant. Are you familiar with the concept of a single tenant? Like
yes.
You have a single tenant in a virtualization mode for your compute. You can have a single tenant for your network, and so that single tenant view of the network, having your own private network and avoiding going over the public cloud, and managing your service level through the magic secret source of MPLS, and having this single tenancy, having that smart network and having smart computing on top, I think is what makes VDC very different from your average legacy cloud, as we probably call it.
As a follow-up question, if you've got a company that's currently using maybe an on-premise system, what do you think the first thing they should think about is when they even consider the cloud? Like, what should their first step be?
One of the great challenges is actually internal business process. So you have a certain way where the application stack sits and the workflow sits for the people operating it all. But what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be focusing on, say, a Windows 2003 end of life. That's very similar to a train driver worrying about the brake pads. The train driver should be really focused on worrying about how to drive his train and not the brake pads. So you want to have your guys abstracting away from the guts of the technology and actually just be moving to how to run their operations better, their IT operations better. And so, getting back to your question about the first step, you look at the assets you want to have and want to keep, and you keep those assets maybe in a colo, and then you can then start using VDC, Virtual Data Center, to do your new applications, etc. Keep those in VDC, and then if you've got existing business processes that are attached to legacy clouds, your AWSs, etc.
Yep.
And then you can plumb, and we provide that connectivity across the board from in-house to VDC to public cloud. You provide that network layer underneath, as we talked about in the previous question.
Yes.
And you can plumb all of it in under this smart network and bring it all together. And that way you don't have to re-engineer your internal processes to be able to get to that next level of cloud.
And you guys over at Interoute, you have a pretty awesome system, the VDC, what you call the Virtual Data Center.
Yeah.
And you had a graph that essentially showed the connection. You guys are pretty much worldwide at this point with your own network.
Yes.
You're not focusing on public internet connection. You guys have your own network. Can you expand on that a little bit?
So we have close to 70,000 kilometers of fiber. I think that's a couple of times at least around the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nodes in Europe, but we've got data centers in Asia and 2 in the US as well. So that gives us something like 14 zones. And once you plug into any one zone, you plug into all of them. So like when you travel on your mobile phone, you get these awful roaming charges when you cross borders. There's none of that. All the IOPS, all the input-output traffic is all free once you get on our network. So you can create disaster aversion by replicating across geographical sites. You have zones in the country that to manage your latency. You have this massive throughput because it's all on fiber optic network.
Yep.
So we've got times between New York and London of 68 milliseconds.
That's awesome.
That's not far off the speed of light when you talk about a round trip. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah. So what that lets you do is run it's just expanding on your question a bit. A distributed architecture, running distributed applications. You can sync it all in not real time, but close to.
As close as possible.
Close as possible. That opens up a lot more new applications as well, because you're running on this massively distributed architecture.
And so you guys have this VDC technology, or is basically what you branded it, from what I can tell. Essentially, it's a private network.
Yes,
that's the big thing in your talk, is that you've got the public versus the private. And public, you're utilizing public resources, whereas the private, you've got it all rolled in for compliance and security. It's much more solid when it comes to a cloud-based solution.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got, so just the example I gave this morning, you've got 3 data centers. One is in the cloud, one is your own, and one is maybe some kind of WAN you've got, or some kind of other service you've got. None of if you're operating over the public internet, none of them are zonally aware of where each other is, particularly, so packets can go whatever route
anywhere
packets can go. And also your point of failure is down to the skill of your IP security. So if there's any flaw in how you set up your IP security, there's a flaw in how your data is traveling over the network. And the other part of it that you've raised is the service level. It's the assuredness. That's probably the biggest reason people come to us. It's the assuredness of service. So you've got these 3 pools of compute. How do you make sure they all work in an orchestrated way? And that's what that private network, which is not just the privacy, it's the service level, which is key.
And that's the big thing in the world right now, is that uptime. Nobody wants downtime. So having that assuredness, like you said, that it's going to stay up, and that you've got that disaster recovery or aversion.
Aversion, actually,
I mean, you've got both, but would you say that the introduction of the cloud in the last couple of years has maybe, and this is kind of a two-parted question, simplified business for companies looking to move into other countries? And if so, can you think of any regulations that companies should be aware of?
Okay, so that's a really good point.
That was something you brought up in the talk.
One of the most important bits that we come across is data residency. There's some fairly strong compliance regulations for different governments. And there's compliance reasons around different types of data. And having the data close to your user, whether that's a machine user, it's machine to machine, or it's an actual end user of your compute cycles, keeping that actually in-house, in-country, is very powerful as a way of managing your compliance. But also, it's a way of bringing the compute resources closer to your user.
Because that's a big thing, is making sure that you're compliant with government regulations and internal regulations, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
That's probably not necessarily the biggest, but a pretty big challenge when it comes to companies expanding out.
And absolutely. If you're an American company and you're looking to develop an application that runs in different countries, then you've got all the tech layers underneath, the latency, the throughput, the privacy, but also you've got the compliance angle as well, which is keeping control of your data, being able to actually be able to point to where it lives. You don't get that choice with other cloud vendors. They can stick it in Finland, they can stick it in Dublin,
wherever
they
can
point to where the data lives. And that's a real strong thing that Interoute has, is we can actually say it lives there. That's your VDC zone. That's how you define it. That's where it's living.
Which is big.
Huge, absolutely huge for an internationally operating company. That's definitely the reason they want to. And if you're growing and scaling, that's another way of growing and scaling and still being compliant with leaving those headaches and compliance out of the workflow.
And you said you guys you're big in Europe. A lot of data centers over there, from what I saw.
40%, I think 40% of European traffic
goes through you guys.
Something like that, and also in the managed hosting, Magic Quadrant, Gartner's Magic Quadrant, we're in the top far right.
Oh wow!
For Europe, so
that's awesome.
We're pretty much.
And you have two. We have one in LA. You're expanding into Chicago.
That's on the plan, but there's no definite dates or times, but I can always get back to you when
that'd be
when
awesome.
we find out.
Do you have any other plans for growth into the U.S. outside of Chicago? Over time, probably.
Well, absolutely, I'm sure we would have. Where we launched in New York and in Los Angeles.
Gotcha.
So that gives us that East Coast,
two
West
big
Coast
ones.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the main coast covered. So as business grows, we will expand.
It's kind of a mixed question between the public and the private cloud.
Sure.
And that with companies expanding across the world, you've got the transatlantic, the bridge there essentially. Would you say that what's in place maybe the next 15 years for both public and private, that's going to be able to handle the load? I know that you guys have your own though. I'm assuming that yours will probably be able to handle it.
I believe from what I've been told, the traffic we have doesn't even touch the sites.
That's awesome.
I mean, we have so much fiber. And the technology we're sending data down fiber improves every day. So once that asset's in the ground, we can make the most of it. But we have a lot of expertise in dealing with that layer of technology. That kind of the transport piece. That it may be a challenge for others, but it doesn't even touch the sides. And that's one of the reasons we give away for free the network. And that's why we have these 1 gigabit connections directly into all our customers that we also provide. So you don't have to go to 2 different vendors to get your link in, and then to get your compute, we just give that as part. That's
one of the big advantages of going with you guys.
You don't
is
have
that
to
one
go to so you don't have to go to another vendor to get that connectivity piece, and then the compute piece.
It's all rolled into one. And you mentioned too that you guys have the back end support, which usually you got to go to another vendor for that.
Absolutely. So we've got the hardware support, but also we don't just dump you. It's not just a credit card swipe and you buy a server. I mean, the whole of Interoute is outsourced ICT. And so we have the consulting skills to help you develop your service. You don't have to kind of sit around and work it all out from all the bits that you could swipe with your credit card. There's a lot more. It's a nice high. You can just buy a server. If
there's a relationship.
Yeah, there's a relationship. You can just click on buy a server, but we hope you do.
It's not like you're going to HostGator, buying a shared host web hosting, and then going from there. You guys are going to work with and make sure that everything works as expected.
Yeah, you might have some assets you want to sweat out, put them in colo. You might want to be doing cloud bursting, in which case you can have dedicated infrastructure, and you can cloud burst to the rest of VDC. You might have compliance reasons that you don't quite understand if you're an American company operating in Europe. You might want to open new markets in Asia. We've got data centers out in Asia. So we're not just a credit card swipe, we're much more than that.
That's awesome. So alongside the VDC, you mentioned during your talk that you guys have a partnership with Docker. Can you explain a little bit what that is?
So in the same way virtualization in its original form abstracted from the servers and the hardware, and in the same way our MPLS networks abstract from the pure bottom layer of the network, we've now got Docker that's coming along, and that's really opening up a whole new set of use cases for us on VDC, on our virtual data center. So for example, you could take a 9-node MongoDB cluster, and you end up having very complex IP addressing to manage all those nodes. But having that MPLS network, having that your own private network, makes managing and wiring together all those Docker instances seamless. It's being able to work with Docker in a much more seamless way over this smart network, not a dumb network as we have in legacy clouds. But this smart network, which will really, we think will really be powerful for those people who are moving into Docker type of infrastructure.
Excellent. Naser, thanks for talking with me.
Absolute pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it was awesome talk. Stay tuned to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and especially our YouTube for more Techweek 2015 coverage. You can find them in the description below, as well as the link to Interoute's site.